So on today's Mentalism Academy lesson, we're going to be going over one of my favorite kinds of prediction effects. In this case, this is a subliminal style effect where the participant sees the prediction but isn't necessarily aware of it. Now, this concept works with thousands of different effects. However, for this, we're going to be using it as a bare bones means of predicting a selected card. And for this, we're going to have a deck of playing cards. And in this case, we notice that there's a card that is face up. We just take it and place it aside. And the deck could be shuffled and mixed by a participant. It really doesn't matter. Afterwards, we take back the cards and we're going to have the participant name a small number. It could be a number between 1 and let's say 30 for the sake of explanation here. And let's say they say 10. So we count down 10 from the top of the deck. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Right over here, the 4 of spades. One more would have been the 8 of spades. One less would have been the 5 of diamonds. But of course, they went for the number that happens to correspond to the 4 of spades. Well, lo and behold, my friends, from before we even started, remember we had this card here that we took out from the deck. And in the back, it says 4 of spades. Again, very, very simple. All we're doing is we have a card that is reversed in the middle of the deck. That card is going to correspond to a prediction, and we force that card. Nothing revolutionary, but I think the approach is fairly novel in terms of openly showing the actual prediction to the participant. So here, all I have is a different card with 4 of spades written in the back of the card, and we could even talk about the idea of subliminal messaging. How certain things might not seem like they could influence you, and yet they do all the work. So you just spread through the deck. You notice casually the 7 of clubs. You're going to turn it over, maybe flash the back just for an instance. You don't want really the participants to focus on what the actual words say on the back of the card, and you just put the card away. Now, at this point, you can have the participant mix and shuffle the deck. It truly doesn't matter because we're going to be using a spread call force. And I think a very novel approach to the spread call force because it's done from a face-up deck. So in this case, the back of the card says 4 of spades. The participant has just mixed the deck. So what we're going to do here is we're going to spread through the cards until we notice that 4 of spades. When we see that card, we're actually going to spread call it here at the back as we ask the participant to just name a number that comes to mind. Now here, we don't necessarily want them to name any number between 1 and 52 because we don't want to be dealing through the cards all day. However, you also don't want to seem limiting. So you want to have them name a number and tell them that you don't necessarily want to be dealing all day, but that number is going to correspond to a position. So go ahead, name the first number that comes to mind. Now I'm holding the deck in this position, and this cold card is actually here at the back. So remember, we have that 4 of spades that's been running here in the back. As I square up the cards, I'm just going to scrunch up these cards towards the front, and this 4 of spades is actually hiding behind the pile. So let's say they say the number 10 for explanation. I'm just going to take the cards one at a time from the back and deal them right here on the table. So in this case, that'd be 3, that's be 4, that's 5, that's 6, that's 7. Now, as I get closer to 10, I'm just going to push in that 4 of spades closer so that it's going to take the position of the card that would be in the 10th position. So right now, that would be 8, that would be 9. And here, very casually, I'm just going to reach in, spread through, and remove that 4 of spades as if it came from that 10th position. I could drop this on a table, as I mentioned, 10. Now, had you picked 11, it would have been a different card. Had you picked 9, it would have been a different card. But you picked 10, and you feel like that was a free choice. And of course, now you forced the card. So let's go over that one more time here. The participant has just mixed the deck. I'm spreading through until I find that 4 of spades. I'm getting that card in a spread call position. I could spread through the card just like this momentarily, and I'm going to gather up the cards, scrunching them up here with that 4 of spades here in the back. And at this point, you could have the participant name a number. Now, you don't have to have them name a number. You could also just have them call stop. So in this case, remember that that 4 of spades is back there. So you could really go through the cards in this way and just have the participant call stop anywhere they want. Of course, wherever it is they call stop, all we're going to do is we're just going to reach in and grab that 4 of spades as if that card came from the position where they called stop. However, I do have the preference if they happen to name a number because that way I could actually prepare when I get closer to that number. So as I'm beating the cards, let's say they happen to say the number 5 right here and by number 3, I could push that 4 of spades closer so that now by the time I actually get to the 5th card, that 4 of spades is going to be there and seem like, well, it was there all the while. You're not going to be able to have that luxury if you happen to have them call stop, but it still works effectively. And of course, the benefit to this particular force is that we're doing it with the cards face up, so everything seems extraordinarily fair because you're not doing anything sneaky. Everything's out in the open. We're just going through the cards. We're dealing through them. The participant could have named ostensibly any number. And of course, that happens to be the card that corresponds to the prediction. Now, of course, you're more than welcome to talk about subliminal messaging and how little things that might not seem could influence you actually have a world of an effect. You could even bring up the fact that maybe some people would think that I'm trying to influence you to pick something like a 7 or a club. But in this case, no, this was just a red herring because really, 4 of spades was written on the back of the card that they freely picked. They shuffled the deck. They could have picked any number. And yet, we all come to a successful conclusion due to their propensity to fall for subliminal advertising or subliminal messaging. You get what I mean. However, for this, I like this approach with a prediction because it's something that you are displaying to the participant to show them the ability for them to get influence. It's not this prediction that you just pull out of nowhere, out of the cosmos, out of some sort of psychic intuition. This is a fairly realistic ploy, and it's very believable. In this case, by the very virtue of them seeing this card, somehow that's in their head, so they pick the number that happens to correspond to the position of what they saw, even though they didn't necessarily pay attention to it. I wouldn't outright jump to the subliminal messaging pattern for this particular trick. What I would do is I would have the 7 of clubs reversed in the deck with the 4 of spades in the back. I would then spread through it casually, take out the card, just turn it over to myself and put it underneath the card box. Then I'm going to have them shuffle, and as they're shuffling, that's where I bring up the idea of how easy they are to influence if they think they could fall prey to subliminal messaging or subliminal advertising. And of course, the proof is in the pudding when you go through the force and you happen to turn over the card that you took out in the very beginning and it happens to correspond exactly to the card that they picked. Fun stuff. And again, this isn't necessarily just limited to card tricks. This is a wonderful concept that could apply to any other force. So if you have a deck of cards, maybe one of these that have come out in the market that forces items or objects, it would be a wonderful opportunity to implement this style of revelation. But other than that, I just wanted to give you guys a nice little bare bones approach to it. And I think a fairly novel way of forcing a card with this face up, any card at any number, if you want to call it that method. As always, I thank you guys for being a member of the PigCake Mentalism Academy, and I hope to see you on the next lesson.